Welcome to History Meets English. Today, we will discover the incredible story of Queen Victoria, the young princess who became one of the most powerful queens in history. This is not just a history lesson. As you enjoy this inspiring story, you will also improve your English listening with clear and easy English. So, sit back, relax, and travel back in time to the remarkable life of Queen Victoria. Chapter 1. A Little Princess with a Great Destiny. The year was 1819. Europe was changing after years of war. Kings and queens ruled powerful kingdoms, and the British Empire was growing stronger every year. On May 24, 1819, a baby girl was born at Kensington Palace in London. Her name was Alexandrina Victoria. No one in the palace imagined that this tiny baby would one day become one of the greatest monarchs in history. At the time of her birth, several people stood ahead of her in the line of succession. Becoming queen seemed almost impossible. Victoria's father was Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, the fourth son of King George III. Her mother was Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld, a caring but very protective woman. Sadly, happiness did not last long. When Victoria was only 8 months old, her father died. She was too young to remember him. From that day, her mother became the center of her world. She wanted to protect her only daughter from every danger. Victoria grew up inside Kensington Palace, but her childhood was far from ordinary. She could not run freely through the streets or play with children whenever she wanted. Every part of her day followed strict rules. She studied history, geography, languages, music, drawing, and religion. Tutors watched her closely, and servants were always nearby. This strict lifestyle later became known as the Kensington system. It was designed to keep the young princess disciplined, safe, and prepared for a royal future. But it also made her feel lonely. She had very few close friends and rarely enjoyed the simple freedom that most children take for granted. Even as a little girl, Victoria showed a strong personality. She was curious, intelligent, and determined. If she believed something was right, she was not afraid to say so. Her teachers quickly realized that she learned fast and remembered details easily. One day, while studying her family tree, Victoria noticed something unusual. She discovered that many people ahead of her had died without leaving surviving children. Slowly, she realized the truth. One day, she might become the Queen of Great Britain. The thought frightened her, but it also filled her with a deep sense of responsibility. According to people who knew her, the young princess quietly said, "I will be good." Those simple words revealed the kind of person she wanted to become. She was still just a young girl. She had no idea that, in only a few years, her life would change forever, and the crown of the world's most powerful empire would rest upon her head. Chapter 2. An Unexpected Queen. Victoria was only 18 years old. Most young women her age were still thinking about their future. But on the morning of June 20th, 1837, Victoria's life changed forever. Before sunrise, loud footsteps echoed through the halls of Kensington Palace. The Archbishop of Canterbury and Lord Conyngham had arrived with urgent news. King William IV had died during the night. The young princess was awakened and asked to come downstairs immediately. Still wearing a simple white nightgown with a dark shawl around her shoulders, she calmly entered the room. Everyone bowed before her. At that moment, she was no longer just Princess Victoria. She had become the Queen of the United Kingdom. The room fell silent. Victoria listened carefully as the news was explained. She knew the responsibility was enormous. Millions of people now looked to an 18-year-old girl for leadership. Instead of showing fear, she remained calm. Later that morning, she wrote in her diary that she prayed God would help her do her duty well. She understood that wearing the crown was not about power alone. It was about serving her country. Soon after becoming queen, Victoria made an important decision. She moved from Kensington Palace to Buckingham Palace. For the first time in her life, she finally had the freedom to make many of her own choices. The strict rules of her childhood were behind her. She was determined to rule with confidence, wisdom, and honesty. But being queen was far from easy. Every day she met government ministers, signed official documents, and learned about the challenges facing Britain. She spent hours reading reports and asking questions. Although she was young, she refused to let others make every decision for her. One person who greatly influenced her during these early years was Lord Melbourne, the Prime Minister. He patiently explained how the government worked and helped the young queen understand the difficult world of politics. Victoria respected his advice, but she also developed her own opinions. Day by day, she became more confident. People across Britain watched their new queen with great curiosity. Some doubted that such a young woman could successfully rule a growing empire. Victoria wanted to prove them wrong. She worked hard, learned quickly, and faced every challenge with determination. Without realizing it, the young queen was beginning a reign that would last more than 63 years longer than any British monarch before her. The lonely princess had become a confident queen, and soon another person would enter her life and change it forever. Chapter 3. Love that changed her life. Being queen was not easy. Every day, Victoria attended meetings, read government papers, and made decisions that affected millions of people. Although she ruled a great nation, she often felt lonely. She had power, wealth, and respect, but there was no one with whom she could truly share her heart. In 1839, everything changed. A handsome young prince from Germany arrived at Buckingham Palace. His name was Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Victoria had met him once before when they were younger, but this visit was different. Albert was kind, intelligent, well-educated, and deeply interested in science, music, and art. The more time Victoria spent with him, the more she admired him. As queen, Victoria held a higher royal position than Albert. According to royal tradition, no one could ask the queen to marry. Instead, the queen had to make the proposal herself. On October 15, 1839, Victoria invited Albert to Buckingham Palace. With honesty and confidence, she asked him to marry her. Albert happily accepted. Their wedding took place on February 10, 1840, at the Chapel Royal in St. James's Palace. Crowds filled the streets of London, cheering as the young royal couple celebrated their marriage. For the first time in many years, Britain saw not only a queen, but also a woman deeply in love. Their marriage was built on trust, respect, and friendship. Albert quickly became Victoria's closest advisor. Although he was not the king, she trusted his opinions on many important matters. They discussed politics, education, science, technology, and the future of the British Empire. Albert encouraged new ideas and supported inventions that could improve people's lives. Together, they built a large family. Victoria and Albert had 9 children, who later married into many royal families across Europe. Because of this, Victoria became known as the grandmother of Europe. Their home was filled with laughter, music, books, and family life. Despite being queen, Victoria loved spending time with her husband and children. She often wrote in her diary about how happy Albert made her feel. For Victoria, Albert was more than a husband. He was her closest friend, her greatest supporter, and the person she trusted above everyone else. She believed they would spend the rest of their lives together. But history had written a very different ending. Chapter 4. The Queen of a Growing Empire. As the years passed, Queen Victoria became more confident. She was no longer the young girl who had suddenly inherited the crown. She had grown into a respected monarch, and under her reign, Britain entered one of the most remarkable periods in its history. This period became known as the Victorian Era. Factories rose across the country, railways connected distant cities, and steam engines transformed travel and trade. People could now travel faster than ever before, while ships carried British goods to every corner of the world. New inventions changed everyday life, and science and industry moved forward at an incredible speed. Victoria and Prince Albert believed that progress could make life better for everyone. Albert strongly supported education, science, engineering, and new technology. His greatest achievement came in 1851, when he helped organize the Great Exhibition in London's Crystal Palace. It was the world's first international exhibition of industry and innovation. Visitors came from many countries to see thousands of inventions, machines, and works of art. The exhibition amazed the world and showed that Britain had become a global leader in technology and manufacturing. Meanwhile, the British Empire continued to expand. Its influence reached North America, Africa, Asia, Australia, and many other parts of the world. Ships carrying the British flag crossed oceans every day, connecting distant lands through trade and government. At its height, people proudly said, "The sun never sets on the British Empire." In 1876, another important moment arrived. Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli gave Queen Victoria a new title, Empress of India. India had become the most important part of the British Empire, and the new title symbolized Britain's growing global power. However, the empire was not built only on success. Its expansion also brought conflict, wars, and hardship for many people living under British rule. History remembers this period as one of great achievement, but also one of difficult questions about power and empire. Victoria understood that a ruler's decisions could affect millions of lives. She continued performing her duties with discipline and dedication, becoming a symbol of stability during a time of rapid change. To many people, Queen Victoria represented the strength of Britain itself. But while the empire was reaching its greatest height, a personal tragedy was quietly approaching. Soon, the queen who ruled the largest empire on earth would face the greatest sorrow of her life. Chapter 5. A Heart Broken Forever. For more than 20 years, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert faced every challenge together. They shared the responsibilities of the crown, raised their children, and supported each other through difficult times. Victoria often said that Albert was not only her husband, but also her closest friend and greatest source of strength. Then, in 1861, everything changed. Prince Albert became seriously ill. At first, many people believed he would recover. Victoria stayed by his side, hoping and praying that he would get better. Day after day, she watched over him, refusing to leave him alone. But on December 14, 1861, Prince Albert died at the age of 42. Victoria was devastated. The woman who ruled the largest empire in the world suddenly felt completely alone. No crown, no palace, and no power could take away the pain of losing the person she loved most. Her grief was so deep that it changed the rest of her life. Victoria wore black clothes almost every day for the next 40 years. She rarely attended public celebrations and avoided many royal events. Because people saw her dressed in black so often, she became known as the Widow of Windsor. Inside Buckingham Palace, many of Albert's rooms were left exactly as they had been. his clothes remained in place. His books stayed on the shelves. Even his personal belongings were carefully preserved, as if he might return at any moment. Across Britain, people began to worry. Some wondered why they saw so little of their queen. Newspapers criticized her long absence from public life, and a few even questioned whether she would ever return to her royal duties. But grief is different for every person. Victoria never stopped loving Albert, yet she slowly realized that her country still needed its queen. Step by step, she began appearing at public ceremonies again. Although the sadness never left her heart, she found the strength to continue serving the nation. To honor Albert's memory, magnificent memorials were built across Britain. The most famous was the Albert Memorial in London, standing proudly near the Royal Albert Hall. These landmarks reminded future generations of the extraordinary partnership between the Queen and her beloved husband. Victoria had lost the love of her life, yet she refused to let sorrow destroy her sense of duty. With quiet determination, she continued to wear the crown, not for herself, but for the people she had promised to serve. Her greatest personal tragedy had become her greatest test of character. Chapter 6. The Woman Who Ruled an Empire. Time continued to move forward, and so did Queen Victoria. Although the pain of losing Prince Albert never disappeared, she gradually returned to public life. The people of Britain welcomed her back with respect and admiration. They saw not only a queen, but also a woman who had endured great personal loss without abandoning her duty. As the years passed, Victoria became a symbol of stability. Governments changed. Prime ministers came and went. New inventions transformed everyday life. Telephones, electric lights, railroads, and steamships changed the world faster than anyone had imagined. Through all these changes, one person remained constant: Queen Victoria. By the late 19th century, she had become one of the most recognized women on earth. Her portraits hung in government buildings, schools, railway stations, and homes across the British Empire. From Canada to Australia, from Africa to Asia, millions of people knew her name, even if they had never seen Britain. In 1887, the nation celebrated her Golden Jubilee, marking 50 years on the throne. The streets of London were covered with flags and decorations. Soldiers from across the British Empire marched through the city, representing lands from every corner of the world. Huge crowds gathered to celebrate the Queen who had ruled Britain longer than any monarch before her. 10 years later came an even greater celebration. In 1897, Queen Victoria celebrated her Diamond Jubilee, marking 60 years as Queen. It was one of the grandest royal celebrations in British history. Kings, queens, princes, and leaders from many countries came to London. The streets were filled with cheering crowds. Church bells rang across the country, and thousands of soldiers marched proudly through the capital. For many people, the celebration symbolized the strength and unity of the British Empire. By now, Victoria had become more than a monarch. She had become a living symbol of an entire era. People began calling the period of her reign the Victorian Era, a time remembered for industrial progress, scientific discovery, expanding cities, and major social change. Her name became forever connected with one of the most important periods in modern history. As she grew older, walking became more difficult, and her health slowly declined. But she continued carrying out her royal duties whenever possible. Even in old age, she believed that serving her country was her greatest responsibility. After decades of triumph, sorrow, and service, Queen Victoria was approaching the final chapter of her extraordinary life. The little princess who had once whispered, "I will be good," had kept that promise for more than 60 years. Chapter 7. A Legacy That Still Lives. On January 22, 1901, Queen Victoria passed away at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight. She was 81 years old. The news spread quickly across Britain and throughout the empire. People gathered outside churches, government buildings, and town squares in silence. Flags were lowered. Newspapers around the world reported the death of the woman who had ruled for more than 63 years. For many people, it felt like the end of an entire age. Queen Victoria's funeral reflected her own wishes. Instead of being remembered only with sadness, she wanted to be surrounded by reminders of the people she loved. She was buried beside her beloved husband, Prince Albert, at the Royal Mausoleum in Frogmore. After her death, her eldest son became King Edward VII, and Britain entered a new chapter in its history. But Queen Victoria's influence did not end. The period known as the Victorian Era remains one of the most important chapters in modern history. During her reign, Britain experienced remarkable industrial growth, scientific discoveries, railway expansion, global trade, and major social change. Her name became a symbol of stability, duty, and determination. Even today, visitors from around the world travel to places connected with her life. Her portraits still hang in museums. Her letters and diaries continue to help historians understand one of the most fascinating periods in British history. Queen Victoria began life as a lonely little princess who never expected to wear the crown. She faced enormous responsibility at just 18 years old. She found great love, suffered heartbreaking loss, and continued serving her country through joy and sorrow. Her life reminds us that true leadership is not measured by power alone, but by courage, commitment, and the willingness to keep moving forward even in the hardest moments. More than a century after her death, Queen Victoria is still remembered as one of the most influential queens the world has ever known. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the remarkable life of Queen Victoria. If you enjoyed this story and improved your English listening along the way, please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to History Meets English. Every new story on this channel helps you discover history while improving your English, one chapter at a time. Until our next journey, keep learning, keep listening, and keep exploring history. See you in the next video.